Welcome everyone to the premier program of Common Sense. My name is Ann Penna and I'm Executive Director of Citizens for Limited Government, which is a 501c3 nonprofit educational organization whose mission is to educate on the values of limited government, free markets, and individual rights regarding the issues we face on a national, state, and local level. We are so pleased to have as our first guest today Candy Straight. Candy is a member of the Board of Governors for Rutgers University, as well as a Republican Party activist, and she's here to talk to us today about some of the major issues facing New Jersey. Candy, one of the first issues we have coming up, and we're hearing a lot of talk about, is the millionaire's tax. Seems lately we're sort of getting into this culture of entitlement, and we have about 16,000 millionaires in the state, and the word out there is that more people than not are for the millionaire's tax. And I think they're trying to find a way around it so that it doesn't have to go for a vote before the governor. So can you please talk to us about that?
Well, let me say this. I think that the opposition to people in favor of a millionaire's tax, are short-sighted. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say this is New Jersey has to compete in the marketplace that surrounds us. State of Pennsylvania, their highest state income tax is just a little bit over 3%. Ours is close to 9%.
Wow.
And we're actually even higher than the state of New York for state income tax. So I know a lot of people who've moved out of New Jersey, even though their businesses are still in New Jersey, but live in Pennsylvania because they don't want to pay the state income taxes. And if you look at it, if you're a person making $40,000 to $70,000, and I'm sure there are many families in New Jersey that say $40,000, it's hard to live here, right?
Yes, it is.
$40,000 of taxable income in New Jersey is taxed at around 5%. Mm-hmm. If you lived in Pennsylvania, it'd be taxed at 3%.
And that translates into a nice chunk of change.
It does. So now I know that people get upset because Chris Christie, our governor, wants to reduce taxes by 10% across the board. Mm-hmm. So whether you make $20,000, he wants to reduce your taxes by 10%, or whether you make $1 million, he wants to reduce your rate by 10%. And so therefore, the people who get the most money are people making over $1 million.
Sure.
But they provide the jobs and a lot of growth for New Jersey. We are losing people that work in New Jersey and provide new businesses to other states. We can't do that. We have to be competitive. And when the states surrounding us have lower tax rates than we do, we're going to lose people, and we're going to lose
people are going to vote with their feet, and they're going to leave. And the other part of the problem with this is that we're always looking to take from people who are successful, which is why people are in this country to begin with, is what we were founded on, is to be successful. So instead of raising the probability of more people becoming successful, it seems the equation has been twisted that you have to take from those who are successful. So now, instead of one person struggling, now you have two.
Well, the other thing I want to remind everybody is that even if the governor reduces income taxes across the board by 10%, we're still the highest tax state in this area.
Exactly.
So it's not like we're becoming a low tax state. So therefore, I think it's, I say let's give the governor a chance. Let's try to increase our economic growth. New Jersey's unemployment rate right now is around 9%. The country's unemployment rate is around 8.2%. We are lagging in growth and employment. Now, I know we've made strides. Our rates are down, their rates are down. But New Jersey needs to be a growth engine, and therefore we need to provide opportunity, and I believe that's why the governor is correct in saying he wants to reduce taxes on all incomes.
And once we have reduced taxes, it always seems that relates to a higher revenue. I mean, more people are spending, so you are getting more on a sales tax as far as revenue is coming in. So while people initially can't maybe grasp around the idea that lower taxes actually equal more revenue for the state.
Yeah.
And for the country as a whole, it seemed every time we were successful was when the tax rates were low.
Well, we have to get this country growing again. We have to get the gross national product growing again, because if we continue to shrink our gross national product, there'll be less for everybody. Whether you're rich or you're poor, it'll be less for everybody. We need to increase the pie. That's what the governor's trying to do. and I think we should support him in that.
Right, and it's really about increasing it for everyone across the board, no matter how much you're making. You know, the less that you're paying in taxes, now you have an extra $5, $10. You can take your family to the movies, you can go out for something to eat, and, you know, that stimulates all forms of the economy. And it also sort of goes back to that Keynesian theory of, you know, the government has to stimulate the economy, and that's really just a shell game. So they only get their money by taking it from us through taxation, printing more, or borrowing it.
I'm a believer that individuals make better decisions on how to spend their
Absolutely.
money than the government. So I want to put, I'm not governor, but
Right.
I support the governor in his goal to put more money in people's pockets than in the government's
And
pocket.
I think that's more of the message that we have to get out, that it's not just about giving money to millionaires. I mean, suddenly the millionaire and people who are successful are the demon and not the government who's taking the money from you. They get a pass.
Yeah, the other thing is that your millionaires are the most mobile.
Right.
They can move more quickly than lower income individuals and families.
Absolutely.
So therefore, unfortunately, they are moving. And we need to attract business. We need to attract entrepreneurs into this state. And therefore, we have to have a more competitive tax structure versus Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New York.
Right, thank you.
Well, the taxes are one aspect of people's daily burden or costs or things they look forward to or have to deal with. Speak to us a bit about what's going on with the energy policy, because energy costs are going through the roof. And now we're flirting with the Reggie greenhouse gas initiative again. And this is going to be an issue because now we have rising fuel costs as it is. So it goes beyond the property taxes. Now we're dealing with other expenditures
Like
and all that.
property
So
and income taxes.
Well, we have property taxes, income taxes, and we do have energy taxes. And, you know, when you go to the gas tank to fill up your car with gas, there's a pretty high tax on that. Now, New Jersey, I will give New Jersey credit for this. We have one of the lowest tax rates as far as
gas.
gasoline.
Okay.
So there's lots of strains and stresses, and but I think the most important thing is to try to get this economy growing, and that's what the governor's trying to do.
Absolutely. So, Candy, another issue that has been plaguing Route 3 for quite some time.
Yes.
The rabbit hole of
Right.
bonds and funds, and you know, it has so many issues. The look of it being probably the least of the problem right now. I mean, you know, when tourists come in, the comments that they make about the Meadowlands site are
Right. Well,
are quite comical.
it is an eyesore. Let me say this, that I was on the board of the New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority
Okay.
in 2002 when the vote came up
Mm-hmm.
on whether to spend the money to build that and give the developer the opportunity to build it. I voted against it. There are only two people on the board of governors, board of directors of the
Right.
Sports Authority that voted against, Ray Bateman and myself. The reason why we voted against it in 2002 is that the economics just did not make sense. We did not have firm economics to show us that the project was commercially viable. So, but they went ahead anyway. And let me say, that was 2002. Here we are in 2012.
10 years.
We've spent over $1 billion, and we still do not have anything that's open.
and it's still ugly. by the way.
And it's still ugly, you're correct.
still ugly. Yes.
There's lots of difficulties. There's probably two major hurdles. One major hurdle is in the last 10 years, people buy more online. So a
Right.
lot of these large malls have not done as well because I shop at Macy's, but I probably shop at Macy's as much online as I do in the store.
Sure.
And so that's one problem. The other problem is the economic environment. We did hit a crash, but this was supposed to be open in 2005.
Oh, yes.
Before we had any
I remember when all the
market
videos
crash.
were coming
Yeah,
out and
right.
talking
It's-
about
But
Xanadu.
it just did not make economic sense. Now, here's the problem too, is that we do have a growth engine in the Meadowlands, and that is known as the Giants and Jets Sports
Right.
Complex. And we also have in Bergen County blue laws.
Oh,
where you
yes.
can't be open on Sundays. So that handicaps malls. So there are individuals that are not happy, you know, whether your store, to go into that. So it's
Right.
difficult to get tenants. And then you have to negotiate with the Giants and Jets on whether you're going to be open on game day. all
Yes,
right?
that's
So
there
it
could
is-
be a
it is-
legal
it is-
challenge
it
to
is-
that.
It is very, very difficult. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope something can be worked out to get this project viable again, but it's not clear that it will be.
Right, because that is potentially the next hurdle. The teams
right.
do not want the amusement park, the water park open
Well,
up during
during
season,
games,
preseason.
during games, right?
During
That is
games.
correct. And so it is difficult. And then you have, a store that's going to go in there has to realize that many Sundays are going to maybe be closed. Now, the Meadowlands itself has an exemption. Because
Okay.
if you go to a Giants and Jets game,
Right.
you can buy a T-shirt, right?
Right.
Whereas
right.
if you go to the mall in Paramus on Sunday, you can't buy a Giants T-shirt, for lack of a better word. So there's
Store's
an exemption.
locked.
So what happens in that regard, I can't tell you, but
Right.
because I don't know. So this is probably a long negotiation. Unfortunately, the secular trend of people buying online continues.
Right.
So that's the secular trend is going against this project.
Mm-hmm.
The economy hasn't picked up that much. And we have lots of malls in Bergen County and in Essex
Yes.
County and in Hudson County. So there's a lot of competition. I wish them well because, what Governor Christie inherited was this eyesore.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he's trying to make something positive out of it. I hope he does, but it's not clear that he can.
Right, and it just seems that even saying yes to this, it's like build it and they will come, never really thinking about the unintended consequences.
Thank you, Governor
and thinking
McGreevey, for
through.
that.
Yeah,
Well,
so
absolutely.
Thank you, Governor
So
McGreevey,
nobody,
for that mess.
nobody even questioned the idea of a ski slope in the middle of a swamp on Route 3 and
I
thought that
voted
that was gonna
against
be
it. I voted
Yes,
against it
we have the
because it didn't make
person,
any
we have
sense.
two people
I
at least that had
questioned
some
it.
sanity
It made no
to
sense.
say
And
no.
my understanding is that if it does open, there's not going to be a ski slope. I have no idea.
What are they going to do with that? And the tiles and I mean,
Oh, no, it's
I
sad.
remember being there at the beginning of it. I had a consulting job there, or contractor job, I should say. So, the big thing was with George Loffinger talking about Xanadu, and it was just going to be this
Remember, it was
wonderful
going to be the Disney World of the
thing.
North?
Yes,
and,
now it's called
which
the
was-
American Dream, which seems like an oxymoron to me.
Right, but it was never going to be. They sold it as the Disney World of the North, and when it was really going to be a shopping mall.
Right.
And, but the economics
ski
didn't
slope.
exist for a shopping. Right.
So
with
wait a
ski
minute,
slope.
it's being recalled the American Dream?
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's the new name.
Well,
it's
maybe it is an appropriate building then.
Dream on.
Right, dream on.
Dream on.
Okay, well, Candy, I guess we're coming up to a break now. So, okay, not yet. All right. So, Candy, let's touch on the third topic. We'll just touch on that a little bit before we come up to a break. And it's a bit of controversy, a little bone of contention going on with this, and that is the governor's proposal to reorganize higher education.
Right.
So, if you can
It's
give us a little
very
intro to that.
complex and difficult situation. Impacts really all of New Jersey, north and south. And I hope that everybody pays attention to it and becomes informed. It'll probably be something that will have to be voted on by our legislature. Although it's possible they could do it by executive order, I think the governor and the lawyers have said it has to be voted on by the legislature.
Right.
There's a couple of different components. One of the component is medical education in New Jersey. In 1970, the University of Medicine and Dentistry was founded. And I would say to help jumpstart that in Newark was that the governor at that point in time gave Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, which is on the campus of Rutgers, and it was owned by Rutgers, merged it into the University of Medicine and Dentistry
Okay.
in Newark. Now today, some 40 years later, we have a thriving medical school in Newark. We have a dental school in Newark. And then we still have the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School on the Rutgers campus. And for Rutgers and the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School to have a stronger bond, to create more opportunities for growth for New Jersey, it probably makes sense for the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School to be taken back by Rutgers.
Okay.
And so that's the first part of the governor's
Great.
proposal.
And after the break, we're going to definitely get more into that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Thank you, everyone, and welcome back to Common Sense. My name is Ann Penna, your host today, and we have as our guest host Eddie Malavarca. Thank you. And once again, we're here with Candy Strait, who is going to continue filling us in on what is going on with the merger on higher education.
Right.
Thank you, Candy.
Thank you. Let me say that the original proposal back in December was to merge the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School that's in New Brunswick back with Rutgers University. And then they decided to look at some other issues. And the commission went back into study. And then in the end of January or beginning of February, they came back with a revised proposal. And that revised proposal said it still made sense to take the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School and merge it into Rutgers University in New Brunswick, but that Rowan University in Glassboro, New Jersey, and I think it's fair to say that legislators in South Jersey wanted to have a research university in South Jersey.
Right.
Now, we already have the Camden campus of Rutgers University, and they're part of Rutgers in Camden. But in addition to that, they therefore recommended that the Rutgers Camden campus be merged into the Rowan campus and help them build a research university. That has met with almost universal dislike among Rutgers graduates in
Right.
New Jersey, and there are about 200,000 that live in New Jersey. Rutgers Camden is part of the Rutgers family, and they're asking them to cut off an arm of the family. And Rutgers Camden is a much different type of school than Rowan. So will the two cultures, when they merge, will they work well? And I'll give you an example that you probably don't know.
Sure.
If you're a sophomore or a freshman at Rowan, you have to live in a dormitory. If you're
Okay.
you don't get out of the dorm until you're a junior or senior at
Wow.
Rowan. And that's okay. Many schools are like that in
Okay.
America. In Camden, there's much more of a commuter college, and there's a lot of kids that can't afford to pay for room and board.
Right.
But they can afford to live with mom and dad
Right.
and commute into Camden or live in Camden and go
Sure.
there. So there's a much different culture. The Camden students come from lower income families than Rowan students in general. They get a much higher percent of their student body gets Pell Grants,
Right.
which are grants for low-income individuals given out by the federal government. And then there's a New Jersey grant called the TAG grant, Tuition Aid Assistance, something like
Okay.
that. And much higher percent of Camden students get that. So you have this cultural clash
Right.
that needs to be fixed and needs to be discussed and see if it can happen. And then the other thing is we have graduate schools at Camden Rutgers. We have a law school, and we have 3 doctoral programs that are very highly regarded. Do you know, one of our Camden professors won the MacArthur Genius Award. Another Camden professor has just won an award that almost is close to a Nobel Prize, but again on mathematics. Now, the risk you have in merging Rutgers Camden to Rowan is that we will lose our doctoral students and our
Sure.
faculty, and we will and that defeating the purpose that Rowan wants to be a research, and that we will lose many students in the law school. I mean,
Okay.
it's no secret that law school applications are down dramatically in Camden.
Really?
Yes. So I don't know how this is going to work out, and I don't know how I'm going to vote. Because the other major problem, both in the north, merging Robert Wood Johnson into Rutgers, and in the south, merging Rutgers Camden into Rowan, is that many bonds have been issued to build buildings for
Sure.
all of these schools. And so when the University of Medicine and Dentistry sells a bond to the public, they have projects that are on the New Brunswick campus and on the Newark campus and on other campuses they have. And when Rutgers issues bonds, we have, we borrow for our Newark campus, our New Brunswick campus, and the Camden campus at the same time. And bondholders have rights.
Sure.
And if those bondholders exercise those rights, it may be very costly for all the universities to do this. And so we're reviewing it. We're doing our due diligence right now, and we're going to find out what the costs are going to be.
Right. Now, is part of the reason that Rowan is going to take over Rutgers Camden because they have a venture, some kind of a joint partnership or venture with Cooper Hospital?
Yes.
Is that why they feel that is the jumping point sort of for having more medical research going on in that part of the state?
Well, they already, Rowan, the Cooper Medical School is already part of Rowan.
Okay.
So they have that. What the individuals who are opposed to this transaction will tell you is this, and this is true, to build a medical school costs a lot of money.
Sure.
So you have a lot of upfront costs, and then you don't get your revenues for years later. This September is the first class going into that medical school down in Camden.
Okay.
And there are only 50 students. Ultimately, they want a school. It's a 4-year college. I mean, medical
Right.
school is 4 years. Of 400, there are 50. So, therefore, they need cash. They're in the investment mode.
Right.
Now,
Right.
as a result of building this Rowan medical school in Camden, it has reduced the creditworthiness of Rowan University. So their bonds are more highly leveraged,
Okay.
and they need more creditworthiness. Now, Rutgers has a AA rating, and so some people who are opposed to this transaction say all they want is to get other assets so they can borrow more
Okay,
money.
so they can borrow more money.
And how does that help Rutgers Camden? What Rowan needs to articulate, in my opinion, is what are the pluses for the Rutgers Camden campus to this merger? So far, people have only brought out the detrimental effects of it.
Sure.
What are the pluses?
They have to state their case
they need
much
to state their
better.
case better, I think.
And it seems it's becoming so contentious.
But some people say, well, the plus is that Rutgers is getting the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School.
Right.
Well, what's that doing for South Jersey? So if you're a student at the undergraduate school in Camden and you live in Camden,
Right.
you say, I don't care. That's wonderful for New Brunswick, but what are you doing
but
for me?
Right.
And that's what the
Now, what
students and
about the-
faculty are saying.
What about the kids who have enrolled and then midway?
No, they're
There's
still
the
going to
change.
get a
They're still
Rutgers
gonna get
degree.
their
No,
Rutgers
and,
degree.
we went to the governor right away, and the governor agreed that it was important
Sure.
that anyone enrolled would still get a Rutgers degree.
Absolutely.
And any incoming class this September will still get a Rutgers degree.
Okay, perfect. Now, like I said, it also seems that the fray is getting a little bit crazy too. We even have Senator Lautenberg
Right.
is jumping into the mix.
Well, Senator Lautenberg is asking some very legitimate questions. And again, I think he's asking, what is in it for students of Rutgers Camden? I don't think the senator is opposing the merger of Robert Wood Johnson Medical School into
Right.
Rutgers, New Brunswick. But what is the upside for the Camden students? And again, they have to deal with issues. I mean, these kids can't live on campus because they can't afford to
Right,
go
things
to go
have to change.
for tuition. I'll give you an approximation. It's about $12,000, $11,000. But if you have to pay room and board, it
It's a
goes to
lot.
$25,000.
That's a big difference.
These students can't afford room and board. At Rowan, they have no choice. They have
Right.
to be in dorms. So it's a different culture. Rowan, therefore, people say Rowan costs more. I don't know if it really costs more because they are getting room and board. I mean,
Sure.
But again, not everybody can afford room and board today. And again, if Rutgers Camden loses its best professors and loses its law school, that's not a good outcome for South Jersey. That needs to be
You're
addressed.
right. It definitely defeats the purpose. Well, thank you for clarifying points on that. But quickly, if we could talk about, the governor has his highest approval rating right now. So how do you think that's going to translate into the presidential election? I mean, the Garden State has not voted Republican, I think, since 1988. So what do you see happening in the state?
We're a blue state.
Can he carry it?
I think it's, let me say
A
this.
miracle? But,
If,
we can hope.
If, I have a bias, okay? I
Okay.
think Chris Christie, if he's asked to go on the ticket, I think it'll be a big plus for Governor Romney if he put Chris Christie on the ticket. All
Right, and then-
That said, no one's expecting Chris Christie or Governor Romney to win New Jersey. I think they may
Right.
be able, I think Chris could help them big time in Pennsylvania. And there are 3 states that really matter. It's Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. If the Republicans are going to win the presidency, they've got to get back at least 2, if not 3 of those states.
Right.
All right? I mean, if not, if the Republican Party loses Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Florida, forget it. Mitt Romney's not going to be president of the United States.
Right.
Do you think Chris Christie's going to be asked to be vice president of the United
I
States?
don't know. I mean, Chris Christie's going to be on the list. He's going to be on the short list of candidates. One of the things probably against Chris will be the fact that New Jersey isn't going to be a state that Romney's expecting to win. And Romney, the game is the game is electoral college, and it's so a state-by-state basis. It's not like a national election. It's not a, who wins nationally. You could
Right.
win more votes in America and still lose the presidency.
Sure.
So I think Al Gore did that. So
Who?
right.
Yeah, yes, he
remember him?
did.
Yes, he did. So it's a state-by-state game.
Right.
If Obama loses New
Okay.
Jersey, he's going down in a landslide.
Yes,
That's all I'm going to say. He'll
that's
go down
it.
in a landslide.
Thank you. Candy,
Thank
thank you so much for being here today
Thank you.
and discussing these
Good
issues
luck.
with us. Thank you
Nice
so
meeting
much.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
We'll be right back. Please stay with us. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for being with us here on this beautiful Saturday morning. My name is Ann Penna. I'm here with our guest host today, Eddie Malavarca, and as well, we are bringing on Chris Stanziale, who is a Bloomfield resident, who is going to talk to us today about real estate tax roulette. Chris happened to be talking to a friend in Bloomfield and found out about a very interesting property tax law. It is statewide, and it affects each and every town. So Chris is here to tell us how he found out about this and what it's all about. Chris, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Sue Ann, for inviting me. This state tax law, it happens to be on Title 18, Section 17I, and it happens to be called reassessment maintenance. Reassessment maintenance basically gives the tax assessor in every municipality in the state of New Jersey the ability to come in and reassess everybody's properties on an annual basis. He can raise them, he can lower them, or he can keep them dead even.
At whim.
Pardon?
Just at whim, he can do this.
I don't know if it's at whim, but so far it's, I think he spins the roulette wheel, and if your neighborhood number happens to come up. Now, one of the things I do want to show, if you guys can get a picture of that, that's a picture of my town, Bloomfield.
And we
All
have
those pretty colors happen to represent all the neighborhoods in the town of Bloomfield.
And what do we have now, Chris?
We now-
157?
156
Oh.
neighborhoods
I'm
that
off.
Bloomfield is broken up into.
Slightly.
Now, the way I found out about this, and I've never really been politically active, but this thing absolutely annoyed me. Last September, I happened to be at a fundraiser for the Bloomfield Education Foundation, and I was with my best friend who also lives in Bloomfield. And our tax bills had just come out.
Right.
I'm comparing numbers with my best friend, and I'm complaining that my real estate taxes went up 6%. And he looks at me and he says, mine only went up 1%. I said, well, how can that be? Well, basically, I couldn't. Never went that way before.
Right.
So I decided to go down to our local tax assessor, knocked on his door, and he then explained to me, oh yeah, it absolutely can do that. I am allowed by state statute, the one I just named, to go into all of Bloomfield's neighborhoods and reassess each neighborhood up, down, or keep it the same.
Right.
Well, what happened was that he had reassessed some 35 neighborhoods in Bloomfield downward for 2010. Now, the problem is that he reassessed those neighborhoods downward, devalued the property. The property tax, I'm sorry, the budget bill in Bloomfield is, if it's $150 million, the town still has to get $150 million.
That's right. So somebody's paying somewhere, right, Chris?
Somebody has to pay. So those people who got the tax break last year, okay, that tax break was paid by the rest of the homeowners in my town. Now, again, this is germane to every single municipality in the state of New Jersey. And I've yet to ascertain how many tax assessors are actually doing this.
Right, and it seems in Bloomfield is somewhat unique because really our two ends of town are so different from one another.
Yes,
I mean,
they
the
are.
end of town that I live in is very urban. We're, we're right outside of Newark and East Orange. That's I live right there on the border. And the north end of town is much more suburban. So, bigger lawns and, I live in asphalt heaven and the other end of town is nice and green.
Sorry.
And I'm not
I
complaining.
came from that side.
I love where I live, and I
Right.
had a chance to leave, and I didn't. So, I'm attached to my part of town. But so even though the property values are devalued, the problem is, like you said, they still have to make up that revenue. So what's happening now? The tax rate's going up.
The tax rate will go up.
So if your house is the same, now your tax rate has gone up, so you're always going to see a jump in your tax bill
Yeah,
every
there's
year.
no question. Like I said, last year's tax increase for those homes that were not devalued was 6%. Now,
Wow,
the-
that's a lot. That translates into,
it translates.
you
in-
could
for me, it was $700.
right.
Okay, and if you're on a fixed income, you got a problem. There was a side problem last year with one of the apartment houses in town. Okay, got what renters felt it was an unconscionable rent increase.
Oh my goodness, I
What-
know the rent control.
What they didn't realize was that part of their increase went to the 6% that building, Troy Towers, got whacked with because they didn't get devalued.
Because they didn't get devalued.
So part of the real estate tax increase was part of the rental increase at the
So
same time.
once again,
Yeah.
and I had spoken to the renters, and I told them there is no rent control without property tax control. The property owner's taxes go up. They can't foot the whole bill. They've assumed the risk of owning the building. They can lose the building. They can lose everything. And until renters and property tax owners come together, you're not going to lower anything. That's the only way for rent control, because, it's not, why should the property owner pick up the bill? And once again, just seems to me like another form of income redistribution.
That's what
So
it
they're
is.
they're hitting the other end of town to foot the bill.
Did he explain how he deciphered what neighborhoods he would go up and
Well,
which
there is,
ones would- did he
embedded
have
in
a
the state
system?
statute, there are formulas, okay?
A formula.
There are formulas.
And it's not supposed to just be based on
Not just
property
supposed to be
sales.
based on, not just based on property sales.
Because if that were the case, we'd all have them lowered.
That's,
And then we'd all have our rate go through the ceiling because,
That's
one way
exactly
or
right.
another, we're
Yeah.
going to get you.
the side to this was that as I got into this issue and I brought it to the attention of my local councilman, he knew nothing about it.
Right, well, the other part of the law is that it doesn't have to be approved by the council. He just has to let them know he's doing it.
That's exactly
So
right.
it doesn't need the blessing of the mayor and council. And how much you want to bet they're not going to say no?
Well, it was on the agenda in November of 2010.
Right.
And it reads as a line item, it's called compliance,
Right,
okay?
but they
That
never go
word.
into.
They have no idea what that meant.
No. And I think he's explained it to the other council people as, oh, this is a way for us to save $1 million so we don't have to deal with all the property tax appeals that are going to come down the pike.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one way of how they try to explain it away.
Well, yeah, and the two criteria for doing it is, one, to save the revaluation, which occurred in Bloomfield in 2009, and cost supposedly $1 million.
Right.
Okay? Now, there are 12,598 taxable properties in Bloomfield. That would amount to $85 per household, per property, in 1 year. I'm telling you, I would rather pay the $85
Oh, well,
than the
yes.
additional $1,400 I'm going to be paying on my real estate tax bill, which, by the way, has made my property less valuable at
Right.
this point in
And
time.
the point, and even if you wanted to sell, who's coming in? So really, being Bloomfield residents, we're somewhat stuck where we are.
And-
We don't
and-
have the mobility to move. I know I don't, what I paid for my house and what I can get for it now. And then with the property taxes being as high as they are, I mean, my property taxes are $400 less than my mortgage. So my mortgage is not the problem.
No, not at all. It's not the mortgage that is currently the problem.
No,
And
for most people, it's
Yeah.
not. I mean, imagine people who've lived here all their life.
the
Can't even-
secondary part of his thing was by doing the reassessments, you have this problem about tax appeals.
Right.
Okay? There were 301 tax appeals in Bloomfield in 2011. 148 were granted for a grand total of approximately $104,000 in taxes that were reallocated. Again, what people don't realize is that tax appeals are revenue neutral to the town. Town gets its same dollar, no matter
Right.
what.
So they're going somewhere else.
They go and they're
going to you,
reallocated
Chris.
to the other 12,598 properties in
They're
town.
going to your end of town. I found an interesting article here about property taxes, and here's the problem with them. And I'll just read over these points real quick. They're not connected to a person's ability to pay. They punish homeowners for investing in their neighborhood and so encourage blight. I mean, I'm paying so much in taxes that I don't have that money now to fix my home. And then, of course, when you fix it, they come in to tell you that your house is worth more. But, of course, that's only when I sell it, not now. So I'm hit with a $40,000 bill to put in a kitchen and then higher taxes. They are the most expensive to administer. So think about it. We have the cost of assessing, the cost of collecting, and the cost of administering. So that's another issue. And they discourage new businesses, especially capital-intensive industries, which provide long-term economic stability, and they're a hidden tax, which everyone bears. So governments can increase spending, and we don't know about it. And, my biggest mantra is all politics are local, and what happens on the local level so impacts your life on a daily basis, more than any other level of government. Between the taxes that you have to pay and the services that you're getting. And many towns are doing redevelopment, so that's a whole other shell game with your taxes that's going on with pilot programs, tax abatements. So we can speak more on this issue of property taxes because truly it's probably like the number one reason that so many people are putting a for sale sign and losing their homes. What would you say to that, Eddie?
Yeah, I would say that the property taxes eventually will become the bigger issue. Then it's the thing that people will have a much more difficult time keeping up with, more so than a mortgage payment. A mortgage payment, you actually purchased something.
Exactly.
But
Property taxes, we don't know. And when we come back on the other side of the break, which I think that we're going to be winding up to take a break, we're going to talk about the law in a proposed law in New Jersey about our state legislature and the state taking over foreclosed homes. And how does that impact a neighborhood? And I believe that we can tie that absolutely into the property taxes, because that's probably the biggest reason why that house is foreclosed.
Yeah.
A few of us have gotten into a bad mortgage, but a lot of us are suffering the consequences of really high property taxes. So please stick with us. Don't leave, and we'll be right back. Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you again for being with us here today. On the other side of the break, we were talking about property taxes, and there's also an important piece of legislation that we really should discuss, which is making its way through the New Jersey State Legislature, and that is the New Jersey Residential Foreclosure Transformation Act. This could potentially be one of the largest expansions of the state government into our history. In our history, bringing government into every neighborhood in New Jersey while making them our largest landlord and property owner. And what this legislation is all about is the state buying up foreclosed properties and giving them a major tax break along the way, owning the property. And let's talk about the impact that that's going to have on our neighborhoods. Eddie, if you'd like to speak to that.
Well, here's the little devious part about it here, if I just read this.
Sure.
What it would do is basically, here, no county, town, city, borough, town, township, or village shall hereafter give any money or property or loan or money or credit to or in aid of any individual, association, or corporation, or become security for, or be directly or indirectly the owner of any stock or bonds of any, blah, 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 blah. What it is it's a continuation of propping up the system and not
Not letting the system work the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, not letting it fall. And what they're going to do, are you comfortable with thinking that the New Jersey Foreclosure Relief Corporation may purchase the house next door, across the street, or up the block? Okay, in effect, the legislation would be one of the largest expansions of state government in our history, bringing
Right.
government in every neighborhood in state Jersey while making them our largest landlord and property owner.
Right, so now we have the state in the real estate business, and I thought the state was here to administer our laws, not to, take over. And what happens to those, the homes, our neighborhood, what happens to everybody's property value?
Well, they're gonna
in-
take
in-
low income, what they call low income now. They're gonna put them in they're gonna take whoever they deem goes into a foreclosed home. They will just take whoever they deem qualified
So
for
the
this
person who
program.
foreclosed can probably actually end up back in their own home.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, honestly,
yeah,
if
they
it-
actually could.
Right.
And do, by the way, in many
Sure.
cases.
They'll be renting from the government.
The only way to make an impact, if the local property owners are going to fight back, the only way to make an impact on that issue, the real estate tax roulette, is everybody who's a property owner out there, file a tax appeal.
Right.
The only way to get their attention is to flood the legislature, the towns, with tax appeals. I mean, I know that's going to put a lot of money in a lot of attorneys' pockets.
Yeah, well, you know what, you could file them on your own, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
If you're out there to make a statement, you can file them on your own. I mean, what makes this country so unique from so many other countries throughout the world is the fact that we have very strong, or they're being eroded, property rights. Being able to own a piece of property, do with it as you please, to garden on it, grow food, whatever, is a major thing. Without that, we're a serf. You're always paying rent to someone else, and owning a piece of property and owning a home was always part of that American dream. And it just seems there's so many attacks on that.
Well, part
On
of
all
our problem
fronts.
is that our elected officials don't really know how to use calculators.
Not even close.
I don't really think they care to.
They don't care.
I kind
They're-
of think you're right in that respect, and that's a shame. I come from a profession that it's all I use is a calculator to determine what the statistical and analytics are of a particular situation. That seems to escape some of our elected
Well,
officials.
I mean, do they become so out of touch that they? Well, here's an example. As we have a few minutes, and I'm sure we can bring up a few more examples along the way of how out of touch our legislators are. I mean, here we are with an unemployment rate in New Jersey, as Candy Strait was just saying, that's at 10%. We are in a major economic crisis, and we have Assemblyman Ralph Caputo, whose big deal legislation is that he wants to safeguard ice skating rink air. Okay?
Oh, that's a word.
Yes. Okay, so the Department of Health and Senior Services is going to administer this. So, every time there's a government regulation, along with that comes a government employee, or 2, or 3, or 4, along with a whole benefits package paid for courtesy of me and you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
So
are they so out of touch
he's worried about
that
the
ice
air
skating
quality
rink?
in ice rinks.
Well,
How many
that-
times have you been in an ice skating rink?
And
Come
stood
on.
up?
And stood up and
Once.
fell down,
Wait.
exactly.
He's saying the Zamboni machines are spewing forth too much carbon monoxide.
I understand.
Aren't
It's
they
a
run on
green issue. though.
propane?
though.
Aren't they
Yes.
run on propane?
It's
Those
a
Zambonis?
green issue.
Well, can we talk about how that's going to affect our economy, the green issue?
Well,
When
the-
I see green, I see red. Well, they say green is the new red.
I don't think any of our elected officials can get up there and espouse the fact that they're going to save us taxes when they really don't know what the cost of the bill is.
No.
Every small businessman out there has to make decisions on a daily basis as to what it's going to take to survive in their business.
Right.
And they do the mathematics as to whether or not something is profitable or not profitable.
Right.
Our elected officials
No, they don't
have no
care.
need to do that.
No, there's no return on investment. They take money in, and there's no product or service really that goes
Right.
out. There's paper pushers. Now, let's talk about this other issue. Coming up is the True ID. So New Jersey is going to be switching over its driver's licenses so that you can't board a plane without this. I couldn't get an X-ray without showing my driver's license to say who I was. So this all relates back now. So, we need to show ID for every single thing that we do, but apparently we don't need one to vote.
Oh, no.
And James O'Keefe just did a great little expose of going in and having someone go in and say, my name is Eric Holder, our Department of Justice head.
Yeah.
And the guy was ready to let him vote.
Yeah, he goes into where Eric Holder lives, and And
Says, I'm Eric Holder.
I'm Eric Holder. Well, actually, he didn't say I'm Eric Holder. He said very
Oh,
cleverly,
exactly.
"Do
That
you
would have been
have Eric
impersonating.
Holder,
on the
in your
list?
books. Oh, yes, right here. And he says, well, I don't have my ID with me. And the gentleman said, well, it's okay, you can vote. And he says, well, I'll be more comfortable if I go out and get my ID from the car. James O'Keefe says, well, I'll be back quicker than I'll be
Fast and
back
Furious.
faster than you could say furious.
Of course, nobody caught that.
Nobody caught that. But the point was, he goes to the Attorney General of the United States, hometown to prove that we can't even get an ID for voting.
And anyone can impersonate or ask for the Attorney General's voting record. And the guy says, no, it's fine. If you say you're him, you can vote.
Right.
And then he goes outside the Department of Justice and says, do I need ID to get in? And the guy said, of course you do.
Right. So you need an ID for everything but voting.
Yes.
So we're on a good track here.
Absolutely, we are. And I just want to say, Tuesday coming up is Board of Ed elections. There's still 73 municipalities in the state that have not moved their election to November. For some municipalities, that really works. It does take the politics out of it. A lot of union workers can't get off on that day, so that helps with with the voting on election day in November. The downside to that is that there is a lower voter turnout, but we do get to vote on the budget
They
when
can
it's
vote
kept
on
in
the 18th
April.
if they want.
Exactly. So we'll all vote on the 17th.
They could move it to the summer and
So-
take the politics out of it.
Oh,
too.
exactly.
Okay, more people would show up.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, but
it's
that's
really
logical.
up to, well, logic. Don't be so silly, Chris.
I understand.
Talking about logic. But, so let's see. What, price of gas?
Oh, my God.
We're almost at
Price of
$4
gas.
a gallon.
Yeah, our tipping point is $4 pretty much. I mean, that's when we started to really tank a few years back, right? When things got up in that
I remember
range.
that. In the
And so now
70s,
where are we heading with this now?
in the 70s, odd and even license plates being able to
Green-
fill
Jimmy
up.
Carter.
Jimmy
Flags at
Carter.
I didn't even
Green
like-
flags at the gas stations. I know, because I owned a gas station at that time.
Right, I mean, and it's such an impact on the economy. When I have to think about during my lunch hour, because now it costs me over $60 to get back and forth to work from Bloomfield to Parsippany in a week. And when I have to think about, geez, do I want to run an errand and waste that gas? I mean, it's absurdity.
Right. You got to do all the trips at once.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It makes you change your life in ways that your expenditure dollars now go here.
Exactly.
To just traveling and doing simple things. And
Right, and it's just, we're here to talk about, obviously, limited government, and it just seems more and more into every aspect of our life now, whether it's owning them getting into the real estate market, the nanny state just taking over every aspect of our life. And I found an interesting article here that, 15 responsibilities that you should have as an adult. And, it's about taking care of your kids. That's your responsibility. And then all these government safety regulations. I mean, at the end of the day, we're responsible for our own life and limb. And how many more regulations? It just seems every time there's a safety issue, we have a new round of regulations.
right. Next year you'll have to put your kid in full football gear before sending him to school, just so he
Or
doesn't
in
hit
the
his head,
back.
fall down,
Or in the,
scrape his knees.
exactly,
And
because,
you think how paranoid, we've all become over this stuff. I mean, it's reached the total height of ridiculousness.
Right.
As you said, to put a child, through all of this. I mean, I rode a bicycle for years, never fell on my head.
right.
Okay, but I think the bicycle helmet manufacturers and the rest of the styrofoam protectors are behind.
Exactly. My brother's car got hit. It was a Honda. Anyway, the bumper got hit. You know what's in that bumper? Styrofoam.
Yep.
Well,
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, very.
Speaking of Ralph Caputo before about the regulating the Zamboni machines, I think that these legislators actually just sit around and look for things to legislate.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, because
he must have been sitting in the stand.
Or maybe
inside
he
the
was
ice
in the
rink.
garage
Right.
breathing in a little more
Right.
carbon monoxide.
And something he does
than he
turns
should
into
have.
our problem because he can't open a window
Right.
or,
Right. Well, Listen, I just want to, I hate to cut the conversation short. We're really getting into it as we're approaching the end of the hour. But I want to thank you all so much for being here with us today. Eddie Malavarca, thank you so much for guest hosting. And Chris Stanziale for being a wonderful
Eddie,
guest
Sue,
host
thank
on
you
the
very
show.
much.
Thank you. Hope to see you in all next week. Thank you so much. Sue Ann Penna, Common Sense.